remain a killer today?
I walked away and I defected, but I have a lifetime contract. That's why I'm wearing this mask. That was my point of no return. Now I was escalating my evil doing. How am I going to tell my Mexican Mafia brothers that I'm a born-again Christian?
Are you safe?
You can run, but you can't hide.
Hey family, it's Carlos Watson back with an incredibly powerful episode today. We all know that there's a gang epidemic going on in the country, in many ways in the world, and it's got lots of parts to it. It's complicated. There's a new documentary series on Discovery Plus called The American Cartel that really delves deeply into it. And one of the one-time gang members, former altar boy, Ramon Mundo Mendoza, stops by for a conversation that is candid, it's raw, it's unnerving, it's difficult, but we ultimately think it's important as well. Hey, Mundo.
Hey, Carlos.
Mundo, why do they call you Mundo? How did Mundo means world, right?
It means world. It's also a name. My uncle, his name was Mundo, and so that was I adopted that name as a gang name once I became part of the gang world in honor of my uncle.
Interesting. And how old are you now, Mundo?
I am 71 years young.
Where were you born, Mundo?
I was born in East LA, just like the movie.
There was a character in American Me that was based off of you.
Yeah, that was played by Pepe Cerna.
How did you get into gangs? Were a lot of your older siblings or your neighbors involved in gangs?
I was born in a predominantly Mexican area where there were gangs in existence, but contrary to what people say, nobody forces you to join a gang. There's an option. And in my case, I rebelled against the authority of my stepdad. I went to the street and I found my extended family there. The companionship, the loyalty, whatever element was missing at home. Started doing petty crimes. I got jumped into the neighborhood. Within a year of getting into the neighborhood, I killed a rival gang member. And that was my point of no return when I committed that crime. I did 17 years behind bars, which back then was a lot of time.
How old were you when you got jumped in?
19.
And you say jumped in, and I know what you're talking about, but a lot of people who are watching won't know what that means.
When you get jumped in, it's an initiation. And so what they do is they pummel me with their fists, and I'm supposed to fight back. It's like a test of courage to see that you can withstand and to see that you're going to fight back like a man. It's a macho thing.
If I'd met you in high school, what were you like?
When I was in junior high school, I was among the smartest kids in school.
How did you go from being a brain to being in juvie? Was there a moment?
The spark was my rebellion against my stepfather. He was abusive physically, and I really want to emphasize that I hate using that as an excuse because people sometimes think that that's what I'm using. I hate to play this victim thing, but that transition was so subtle from petty crime, from smoking marijuana and drinking, from all those little things. The next thing I knew, I was committing a murder.
And your stepdad, why do you think he beat you so much?
Because I wasn't his natural son.
Did you ever have that conversation with him?
No, I couldn't because he died young. He was 39 years old when he passed away from liver, from drinking too much.
You said it was a slippery slope, but was there a moment when you realized, I'm a criminal? I'm no longer the smart young kid.
After the killing, they sentenced me to involuntary manslaughter. I cussed out the judge. My mom is in the audience crying, and the bailiffs are dragging me out of the courtroom, and I'm on my way to the Department of Corrections with an attitude. That was a significant moment as well, because now I'm done. I'm toast. I want to be the worst that I can be.
Mundo, tell me a little bit about relationships in prison. Did you find any friends? Did you find anything deeper than just the gang while you were in prison, or what did you find?
I did, and it was predicated on killing people. So the prison gang became my family. Now I was escalating my evil doing in prison. The Mexican Mafia recruited me. So now the way you demonstrate your love, your loyalty, the degree of dementedness that you need to be in order to be a prison gang member. It's demonstrated by who you've killed lately. And remember, the Mexican Mafia, there's a death oath. You can't walk away. You cannot defect. Like I walked away and I defected, but I have a lifetime contract. That's why I'm wearing this mask. So those kind of relationships are forged. Yeah, these were my carnales. These were my brothers. And by extension, we adopted each other's families. And sometimes relationships were forged with some of those family members. Like I became engaged to the sister of one of my crime partners, and we almost got married. And so when I talk to you, the only perspective I can give you is the perspective from the ultimate bad guy.
Do you remain a killer today?
I'm not a killer anymore. When I was incarcerated, every Sunday they would allow Christians to come in and talk to the inmates. I had an old man, 80-some-year-old man, who befriended me, and I befriended him, and we got along real good. His love and his genuine concern really affected me because I started thinking about my victims. And one day, the word remorse, which is a word that wasn't in my vocabulary. If you're looking at life through the prism of a gang member, honor, love, loyalty, companionship, all these positive characteristics are perverted, twisted, and misapplied to an abnormal value system. So I'm at that mindset, and I'm thinking about how they died. I shot them, I strangled them, or I stabbed them to death. And I sort of replayed all of these in my mind, and I thought about how they must have felt when I took them out. It was like a realization that hit me that, hey, these guys had families too. Even though they were in that world, they had families. The old man, Nathaniel, kept talking to me about a God that forgives me. I had a hard time with forgiveness. I don't think I could forgive myself. So here I am thinking about forgiveness, listening to what he's saying, and not being able to absorb this forgiveness thing. And then I come to realize I want that forgiveness, but I need to be convinced that it's real. And I found it in reading the Bible. He would tell me what verses to read. I remember reading Psalms 139, where it talks about you can run, but you can't hide. I finally overcame that obstacle, and I decided, hey, if there's a God that forgives, then I want this. So I remember getting on my knees, confessing everything that I had ever done to this unseen God. I remember crying as I did that. I remember feeling like something had exited my body. So I'm thinking, how am I going to handle this with my Mexican Mafia brothers? How am I going to tell them that I'm a born-again Christian? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to give it to God and let him handle it, because I'm not going to stay up every day worrying about this. And I made a decision to work undercover. For a year and a half, I worked undercover against the Mexican Mafia. I helped solve 32 cases, mostly homicide and drug related, put all the big guys away, most of them for life. Some already died in prison. That's why I'm very hated by that group. I'm not a perfect guy by any means. I couldn't bring anybody back from the dead. So I looked at it as it was like a bar of soap, and I'm trying to wash away all the filth.
How did you survive undercover for that long?
There's two things that came into play. The level of performance within the organization had me at the top. So my fellow members would never consider me as somebody who was ratting them out. Number two, working with the task force, they had a very select few that interacted with me. If I gave information to these select few members of the task force, and when they would pass it on to the agencies where the arrests were taking place, my name would never come up. That and the grace of God, I was protected, I was shielded.
And then they moved you into witness protection, you're saying, after that?
Yes. Upon release, the U.S. Marshals took me into their custody, and I was in WITSEC. It helps you get over the it's a healing. What is it that heals? Time. And that's what happened with me.
Mundo, tell me a little bit about your work with law enforcement agencies now.
There's high intensity areas where they're experiencing problems, and I'll come in as a speaker, and my main topic is how prison gangs control street gangs, because apparently the Mexican Mafia template has been employed and copied and pasted by other organizations in other states. Yeah, we used to have a saying, the inside controls the outside.
I hear you talk about speaking. I hear you talking about working with a bunch of different feds. It would seem to me that if I were part of the Mexican Mafia, you'd be pretty easy to track down. Is that right? Are you safe?
I am. You have no way of contacting me. People that put us together, they don't have a direct line to me. I don't call anybody from a direct number. Nobody in the media world can ever pick up a phone and call me, for example. And a lot of that is done through certain people in the law enforcement community. The reason for the mask is there are people in my life that are special to me, and I would be more concerned of the collateral damage.
Tell me a little bit about your mom. Who was she?
My mom was a housewife, a single parent, and there were times when she worked as a common laborer. But for the most part, while my stepdad was alive, she would collect welfare. When you see moms in a ghetto, in a barrio, and you see them supporting their kids, I shake my head because, gang membership, all of that begins at home. And my mom was no different than any ghetto or barrio mom that's out there trying to support her son. They love their kids, okay? I was loved by my mom, and my mom supported me vehemently, but mom was always there, visiting me at juvenile hall, bringing me crossword puzzles, bringing me goodies, candy, toothpaste. She was very loyal.
Mundo, tell me a little bit about this documentary that you're involved in.
American Cartel is a story about the Vineland boys.
Each suspect was armed with 2 handguns. He's armed and dangerous and should be treated with extreme caution.
What started as the murder of my son got bigger and bigger and bigger.
The Vineland boys is a relatively new gang. It tells the American viewer that you can have a community that's really cool, and the minute you get gang activity, gang membership in your little bedroom community, they can take it to another level because they're trying to enhance their status. When the average American scratches his head and says, why do these friggin' gang members want to aspire to be gang members? They're going to do the rest of their life in prison or they're going to die. Because status is important to them. The fear of losing that status is almost overwhelming. They're brainwashed. That's how they think.
Mundo, I want to finish up with something I usually call rapid fire. What was your favorite subject in school?
Mathematics. I was a big baseball fan. I was a big Dodger fan. And I learned mathematics by calculating the batter's averages and the pitcher's earned run average on a daily basis.
What's your favorite book?
When you say book, 1A would be the Bible, and then 1B would be The Hobbit.
What's your favorite movie?
The Clint Eastwood spaghetti westerns, Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
If you could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would you love to have dinner with?
Sandy Koufax, pitcher for the LA Dodgers.
When was the last time you were scared?
Probably when I had a heart attack about 10 years ago.
What's your favorite verse in the Bible or your favorite story in the Bible?
My favorite chapter is Psalms 139, and I renamed that. Title for it is You Can Run, But You Can't Hide.
Thank you. I appreciate your time today. I want to make sure that if people watch this conversation, if they hear it, that it dissuades them or it informs them.
Thank you for having me on board, and God bless you and protect you and guide you in what you're doing.
Ash, what did you think?
I just kept going back and forth with, am I okay with this person talking about death and talking about these things so casually in a way. But then, the only thing I could keep thinking was just that he's trying his hardest to do better and to rectify and, to make up for the things that he's done in his past.
Liz, you coming on down?
Part of me was really just so sad by the trauma and how gangs just prey on kids who are just desperate for love and family and camaraderie, and how he said that 87-year-old man who introduced him to Christianity showed him love. And that really sounded to me like that was the first time he really felt unconditional love.
Marco, you getting in on this?
I've done a lot of work in justice reform, and it's a mix between healing and trauma. There is no true answer to people who fall into this path, but there are preventative measures that we can take. And it's either we criminalize people or we heal them.
Yeah.
And it just makes me think of like how we aren't doing enough of one of them.
Hector, have you gone today?
I kind of grew up in almost a neighborhood similar where a lot of kids I grew up with, some took that path where they joined gangs and stuff, and then 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, like that's when the critical age, because that's where most of the parents are like single parents working 2 jobs just to support. So at the same time, they feel like they don't have families, so that's when they start making the wrong decisions. So it's pretty tough to listen, especially when he got into details.
I had a lot of hesitation after it first happened, even while it was going on, as to whether or not we should ultimately air it. I worried that we might be glorifying things. We kind of spoke very casually about what effectively was mass murder. But I think that what is happening is not just isolated. I think it's got lots of implications, and I think that we've all got to wrestle with it, both as citizens and as a society. And I hope this helped with that, as opposed to simply glorifying. In any case, I'm really interested in what you thought about this. So please leave your comments below. We're going to be thinking a lot about whether there's smart follow-ups to this. And I hope that I'll see you soon as we cover other shows. So don't forget to subscribe, listen to the podcast, and tell your friends about it. I'll see you soon.